Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Climate control, as most reasonable people know, has gotten completely out of control. And we are literally destroying ourselves. We are destroying the only planet that we have. We cannot step into some trans-dimensional machine and migrate someplace else. We do not have faster than light spacecraft to take us to distant galaxies. We are stuck here. We are stuck here. And sadly, we are destroying our own place of residence. And why? To bring profit to the oil companies and others who make money out of polluting our own environment. There is no excuse for that. And yet that is precisely what we are doing on a constant basis. I don't know why. I don't know why. I try to always intersubjectively connect with people who are different than myself. And when I do that with these polluters, all I sense is pure selfishness and evil. I doubt they beat their children, most of them. I doubt that they beat their dogs and cats, most of them. I assume that the majority of them are outwardly nice people, as most people are. And yet they are willfully, intentionally, and shamefully killing our own planet. The only planet that we have. There is no place else to go but here. And why? Greed. Capitalism. The capitalist world system. It is one of many reasons why the capitalist world system needs to be brought down. And with it, the beast of the first world that runs it, and with it, the head of that beast, the United States. They need to be brought down from their positions of power because they have not used their positions in a responsible way. And yet all of us are victims of what they are doing. I'm a communist or a revolutionary socialist. I will answer to either designation. But if we do not do something to address the climate change problem, the fact that I am a commie will make absolutely no difference. We will not live long enough to see the third world and the fourth world take up the mantle of leadership and struggle for revolutions around the third and fourth worlds. And certainly will never reach the first world, if indeed there is a first world even left. And I am not very optimistic about that. Of course, I am a pessimist, a cynic to begin with, as I readily admit, as many of you know if you've been watching my podcast for a long time. So that should not surprise you. And yet I think I have the evidence on my side. Most people are sadly idealists. Idealism is opposed by Marxism or scientific socialism, strongly opposed by it. There is no basis for idealism, and I mean ontological idealism, the belief that thinking, better thinking, will improve the state of the world. That is the view held by many Christian scientists, many people in New Thought, many people who read A Course in Miracles, and many people who call themselves New Agers. They believe that. They believe that by changing your way of thinking, you can actually transform the planet. I remember that I was at a Science of Mind church in Kansas City back when I lived in the Kansas suburbs of that city. And I asked the minister an intentionally provocative question that I knew he did not want to get. My question was this: what if I was on the moon and I believed that I could survive on the moon without an oxygen tank? Would I be able to survive? Well, he hemmed and hawed, as might be expected, but eventually he was compelled to face himself, to look at himself in the mirror, I hope. And he said, well, if a person genuinely believed that, they would. If anything demonstrates the absurdity of New Thought and, more broadly, ontological idealism, which goes back at least as far as the time of Plato, with his concepts of ideal forms, it is that. It is my experience being in the audience asking that Science of Mind minister that question. So I do not subscribe to idealism. I don't think that by thinking about the world better, by having better thoughts, by thinking nicely, that we will be able to transform the world. I am an ontological realist. That ontological realism includes both materialism and spirituality, because as a critical realist, a student of the late Roy Bhaskar defined critical realism as engaging with both spiritual and material reality. And that is how I look at reality. It's not just material, it is spiritual as well. And so, given the fact that I am not an idealist, that I am a realist, I am compelled to come to terms with the fact that we are destroying ourselves. We cannot think ourselves out of the mess that we are in. All the positive thoughts that I've heard many people say, the positive affirmations, if you've ever heard that term, I've heard it used many times. They are simply useless. Useless. They will do no good. They take the responsibility away from our own praxis, away from our own theoretically based practice, and put it on words and thoughts. And that will simply not do the trick. And so when I hear about something like I'm about to talk about right now, I will actually read you an article written about it. I am really, really disturbed so deeply. goes to my heart. I love Muslims. I love the religion of Islam, or in Persian, Islam. I love Islam. I have enormous respect for Islam. And not being a Muslim, that may sound odd, but I do. I especially love tasawwuf, more commonly referred to in English as Sufism. But in general, I love Islam. I think it is a great religion, a tremendous religion based upon surrender to the Almighty, which in Arabic is Allah. In Hebrew, it is Elohim, but in Arabic, it is Allah. Both Allah and Elohim come from the same Semitic root. When I have gone to a lot of Christian rooms, and I have heard these Christians curse out Allah, I have said, do you realize that you have just cursed out Elohim? Because Elohim and Allah are the same. They did not know that. They were not scholars. But I felt it was my obligation, or at least it was my desire, to inform them of that. Whether it made any difference, maybe in some cases, but I doubt it did in the vast majority. So let me go ahead and put on my spectacles, as I like to call them, because I think that's a nice, colorful name for eyeglasses. This story is from CNN. The headline is nearly 500 confirmed fatalities from Hajj heat wave as hundreds more fear dead. Just in case you don't know, Hajj is the Arabic word for emigration. Literally, it translates as emigration, but it's often translated as pilgrimage. So it can be emigration or pilgrimage, but commonly pilgrimage is the way in which Hajj is understood. But basically, it means the obligation which is placed upon all Muslims who have the ability, the health, to travel to Mecca, to do so. That's what a Hajj is. And so faithful Muslims will do that. Not all Muslims can, because there are some Muslims who are rejected as being Muslims, like the Ahmadiyya movement, and so they are not permitted to go on a Hajj. I guess if they lied, they could. I don't know if any of them do. But anyway, that's what a Hajj is. So let me read that title again. Nearly 500 confirmed fatalities from Hajj heat wave as hundreds more fear dead. It is Dateline, Lauren Kent, Caroline Farage, Handate Alam, and Nadine Ibrahim. And the Dateline was today, June 21st, 2024. And here is the article, or at least part of it. The official death toll from this year's Hajj pilgrimage has soared to almost 500, and the true toll could be more than double that, as reports emerged that as many as 600 Egyptian worshippers perished on the route to Mecca amid extreme heat. At least 14 Malaysians, 165 Indonesians, 75 Jordanians, 35 Pakistanis, 49 Tunisians, 11 Iranians, and 98 Indians have died, according to authorities in each country. A further 27 Jordanians are hospitalized and around 14 are still missing. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry said. The U.S. State Department said multiple U.S. citizens died during the Hajj pilgrimage. Hajj pilgrimage is redundant, but regardless, but did not provide a number. We can confirm the deaths of multiple U.S. citizens in Saudi Arabia. We offer our sincerest condolences to the families on their loss, the State Department spokesperson said, adding that the agency stands ready to provide consular assistance. Dozens of Iranians have also been hospitalized due to heat stroke and other conditions, the Iranian Red Crescent said Wednesday, which is basically the Iranian Red Cross. In fact, it is the same umbrella organization that runs the Red Cross and the Red Crescent, according to Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency. According to a CNN tally, this brings the latest official death toll for this year's pilgrimage to at least 480. The death tolls are expected to rise much further, as Saudi Arabia and Egypt have yet to release official figures. Additionally, the governments are only aware of pilgrims who have registered and traveled to Mecca as part of their country's quota. More deaths are feared among unregistered pilgrims. The pilgrims made their year's journey in dangerously high temperatures of up to 49 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you don't know what that is, if you are an American, that is 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And no, it is not dry like Arizona. It is hot and humid as hell. According to the Egyptian presidency, the crisis unit will be headed by Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and will provide support for families of the deceased. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has also instructed the unit on speedy coordination with Saudi Arabian authorities to facilitate the return of the bodies of those who died, the statement added. The official number of dead Egyptians stands at 28, according to an Egyptian cabinet statement Thursday. However, it is being widely reported by Reuters news agency and other outlets that as many as 500 to 600 Egyptians perished on the route. Egyptian officials said they were working to gather an accurate tally of victims and missing persons. The discrepancy stems from vast numbers of unregistered pilgrims who are not accounted for among those who have registered and traveled to Mecca as part of their country's quota. Thousands more have been treated for heat stroke after an estimated crowd of 1.8 million Muslims contended with the high temperatures. That takes devotion. That takes real devotion. Sorry for the interruption. The Saudi Ministry of Health implemented safety measures, including cooling stations along the official route, and urged pilgrims to use umbrellas and stay hydrated, the Associated Press reported. Despite this, this year's event was overshadowed by tragedy, raising questions over whether more could have been done to ensure people's safety pause there for a second. I'm sure there could have been, but we are living in unprecedented times, and nobody could possibly be prepared for the constantly increasing heat rates around the world. And so, yeah, if people had known how bad it would get, maybe they could have implemented some additional controls. But how could anybody do that? You can only base your decisions on your experiences and on your projections. And sadly, the rise in heat levels all over the world is exceeding all projections. Back to the article. It also highlights the dangers posed for the many unregistered worshippers who want to fulfill their religious duty despite not obtaining a Hajj permit and who do not have access to the official facilities. Of the dozens of Jordanians who died of heat stroke while performing the Hajj rituals, at least 68 pilgrims have been granted burial permits to be laid to rest in Mecca on the wishes of their families. The head of the Jordanian Director of Operations and Consular Affairs, Sufan Qada, said. Malaysia's Minister for Religious Affairs, Dr. Mo Naim Bokhar, said most of its pilgrims died from heart disease, pneumonia, and blood infection, according to the state-run Bernamia news agency. The Bernamia report did not specify if the dead were members of the country's official Hajj delegation. Pause. I'm intrigued by this attribution of death to heart disease, pneumonia, and blood infection, things that I would not normally associate with heat. I don't know what caused that. Maybe the heart disease, I suppose, heart attacks, but pneumonia, blood infection, maybe drinking water that is not purified. I don't know. I can't make sense out of that without a further clarification, and there is no clarification of that in this article. Continuing with the article. A spokesperson for India's Ministry of External Affairs announced the death of the 98 Indian nationals on Friday, saying, "These deaths have happened on account of natural illness, natural causes, chronic disease, also old age." Well, I guess that might explain the pneumonia, but even so, why would pneumonia be caused by heat? That's what I don't understand. Back to the article. On Saturday, the day when Muslims gather at Mount Arafat, and where the Prophet Muhammad is believed to have delivered his last sermon, 6 Indian nationals died amid extreme heat, and another 4 died due to accidents, the spokesperson said, without giving further details. The fallout from the deaths saw Tunisia's president, Kais Saied, fire the country's Minister of Religious Affairs. Prior to his dismissal, Ibrahim Khaibi had acknowledged the possibility of negligence in the care of the pilgrims. The negligence may have occurred. It will be present, and we will evaluate it at the ministry level, and whoever fails will be punished, Khaibi said on Friday. The Saudi government said on Monday that more than 2,700 people had been treated for heat stroke. Meanwhile, hundreds of people have taken to social media to post about their loved ones being unaccounted for. More than 1.8 million people are taking part in this year's Hajj, one of the world's largest religious gatherings, according to the Saudi General Authority for Statistics. While deaths among pilgrims are not uncommon, there were more than 200 last year. This year's gathering is being held and amid particularly high temperatures. Hajj season changes every year according to the Islamic lunar calendar, and this year it fell in June, one of the hottest months in the Saudi kingdom. Saudi Arabia advised pilgrims against performing the stoning of the devil ritual between certain hours after temperatures reached an extreme of 49 degrees Celsius, which is 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That same number I mentioned before. Hajj officials asked pilgrims to carry umbrellas and stay hydrated amid the harsh conditions, while the Saudi army deployed more than 1,600 personnel with medical units specifically for heat stroke and 30 rapid response teams. Another 5,000 health and first aid volunteers took part. Performing Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, which requires every Muslim who is physically and financially able to make the journey to the holy city of Mecca at least once in his or her life. The pilgrimage includes numerous detailed rituals, including wearing a special garment that symbolizes human equality and unity before God, a circular, counterclockwise procession around the cube-shaped Kaaba building, and the symbolic stoning of evil. The Hajj is a source of prestige for Saudi Arabia's king, who holds the title of custodian of the 2 mosques as the guardian of Islam's holiest sites. But the pilgrimage is also a significant source of revenue for the Saudi kingdom. Soon after King Salman bin Abdulaziz took power in 2015, Saudi Arabia launched a $21 billion project to expand the Grand Mosque in Mecca to accommodate 300,000 additional worshippers. A year later, then Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman identified the pilgrimage as a key component of a plan to diversify the Saudi economy by 2030, just 6 years away. Experts say that with oil sales generating close to $1 billion a day for the kingdom, the pilgrimage's economic benefit is marginal in comparison, but its great untapped potential could bring significant riches to the kingdom in the long term. Pilgrimage revenues were forecast to average about $30 billion a year and create 100,000 jobs for Saudis when the kingdom attracted around 21 million worshippers annually during the 10-day Hajj, as well as the year-long Umrah pilgrimage, according to official data cited by Reuters. The government is targeting 30 million pilgrimages by 2030. And again, that is just 6 years from now. 6 years from now. Hopefully they will have better resources, better protections for the people who are visiting, the people who will, after having visited, be entitled to put the name Haji after their names. Some do, some don't. But that is a source of pride, not only for Saudi Arabia, but also for people who have gone on pilgrimage, because they have fulfilled one of the 5 pillars of Islam, which is a pillar not only in Sunni Islam, but also in Shia Islam. So in both of the 2 major overriding branches of Islam, it is a major pillar. Of course, there are different schools of jurisprudence in Sunni Islam, and there are numerous subsects within Shia Islam. The most well-known one is the Iranian-dominated form called Isna Ashariya, which Isna Ashariya translates as 12. It's the 12er sect or subsect of Shia Islam, which accepts the 12 imams. But there are also the Seveners and numerous others as well. The Druzes are also considered to be a part of Shia, although they don't commonly say so. It is a real tragedy. It's hard to know what to make of this situation, other than to express my condolences for all the people who have perished, for their families, for anybody who might be watching this podcast, to know that I, as somebody who was not a Muslim, and yet somebody who loves the Prophet Muhammad, who loves the Prophet Isa, Jesus, who loves the Prophet Musa, Moses, who loves the Prophet Ibrahim, Abraham, all of them, and many more, that I feel tremendous connectedness with Muslims all over the world. A deep sense of connectedness, despite my religious differences. And I hope that people who watch this video will recognize that it is possible for somebody like me, who belongs to another religion, who is not a Muslim, which I realize the word Muslim is one who surrenders, implication surrenders to Allah, the Almighty, that I'm still one who deeply loves the religion of Islam and who deeply loves Muslims as well. And so when I hear a story like this about so many Muslims being killed in an annual festival, an annual Hajj, and in my own religion, we have a Hajj too. It's not the same Hajj, but we have one. I have not taken it, but it does exist. I doubt I will ever fulfill that obligation because of my age, but it's possible that I might, who knows, but I don't think so. Regardless, I am very, very sympathetic and empathetic toward the people who take the annual Hajj, who become Hajjis at the end of that period, and who are fulfilling one of the 5 pillars of Islam. To me, nothing can be greater than service to Allah, which is service to Tawheed, which is a word in Arabic for unification, or the unifying one. Not for unity per se. Tawheed is unification, the unification of God, God as the unifying one. That's the implication of Tawheed. Tawheed is the essence of both Islam and my own religion. I deeply love the doctrine of Tawhid, and I respect anybody of any religion who would desire to show homage and love and loyalty to the King of existence, Allah. For the time being, this has been Mark, by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.